Why is there such a recognizable thing as mom hair? Why do so many women feel the urge to drastically cut or change their hair after becoming mothers? In today's episode, we're looking at the possible psychological, cultural, spiritual, maybe even historical roots behind the stereotypical mom look and asking whether some of these appearance changes may actually be connected to stress, grief, trauma, identity loss, and the medicalization of modern motherhood itself. This is the Earthbound Parenting Podcast, where we discuss all things pregnancy, birth, postpartum, partnership, parenting, and how to take radical responsibility in each one. Being earthbound is a wild adventure, so allow me to be your guide. I'm your hostess, Haya, traditionally trained birth guardian, birth educator, and mother of 4 unassisted home-birthed boys. Okay, so my main question for this episode is the mom look actually a trauma response? Because this is a question this episode is because this is a question that has been plaguing my mind for such a long time. And it's one of those questions that's one of those like topics that really does not affect real life in any kind of real way. Like nobody that can do something about what we're going to talk about is looking at all the hair going, oh, there's another one. Okay, so this is just stuff that like sits in my mind and bothers me. Questions, maybe in a past life I was a researcher, like a real one, right? A real scientist, okay? Not just like my homegrown whatever I am today. Anyway, so we're going to start off with a brief look at the US's horrible maternity stats. Hooray! They're really awful. They're terrible, horrendous, okay? So the CDC says as of 2025, that was last year as of the time of this recording, 1 in 5 women reported mistreatment while receiving maternity care. 1 in 5. I'm laughing because it's awful. If you don't laugh, you'll cry, right? Like, it's freaking awful. 1 in 5 women reported mistreatment while receiving maternity care as of last year. Anyway, even worse is what happens to my Black, Hispanic, multiracial sisters out there. 1 in 3 of people in that of women in that demographic reported mistreatment. 1 in 3. That is obscene. That is unacceptable by a large degree. And honestly, okay, listen to me. People that are in the more like traditional lifestyle, maybe a bit more conservative, the people that are probably listening to this and watching this now, okay? You guys, we all need to come together and agree that this is a real thing because it is a real thing. There are people that talk a lot about statistics and things like that, how Black and Hispanic women and multiracial people are being treated. And they also tend to be of a certain political demographic. And so I think a lot of people on the more conservative side of things, maybe a little more center or right-leaning or whatever, kind of go, la, 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 it's probably not true, but I need you to hear me. Okay, this really is a big problem. It's actually something I'm going to cover on a different episode because it's a serious, serious thing. It's a very real thing. So just put that in your pocket and stay tuned for that next episode when it's coming out. But as far as now and what we're talking about today, this definitely still applies. We have 1 in 3 Black, Hispanic, multiracial women reporting mistreatment during their maternity care in the U.S. And you have 1 in 5, just all women, like of every racial background and ethnicity, reporting mistreatment while receiving maternity care in the U.S. Even better, okay, we've got the Harris poll as of 2024 says that 3 in 5 women felt that they had not been given the best possible medical care while pregnant. American Psychiatric Association as of 2024 also says 1 in 5 women suffer from mental health disorders or some kind of mental health disorder in the months before or after giving birth, with traumatic birth, obstetric violence, obstetric interventions, or previous mental illness all being associated with significant increased risk of developing these disorders. And 75% of those women never receive treatment. It's wonderful, isn't it? This is the US. What do you mean? This is the greatest country in all of the land. It is a great country, so what the heck's the problem? What the heck is going on? This is the best dang country in the whole freaking land. Dang it. So what gives, right? Like, this is unacceptable. This is not by proud American patriot standards. This is obscene, absurd, unacceptable. I'm making big jokes about this, but like, this really is awful. Like, again, like, if you don't laugh, you'll cry, right? Like, this is unacceptable by every standard. Are you a mom wanting to get stronger and more resilient, but aren't sure where to start? Don't worry, BirthFit has your back. Sighed. BirthFit offers efficient, intentional movement and fitness training for women in their preconception, pregnancy, or postpartum seasons. Get 20% off any BirthFit program you purchase from their website when you use code HAYA. Support your body so your body can support you and this new phase of motherhood. Go check them out today. So moving on from the stats, because I really don't want to lean too heavy on that, but that's a great foundation for what I'm trying to explain here, or at least like the question I'm posing, right? So we've got these awful freaking stats that are legit stats that are just awful. And then we have this other fact on the other hand over here. So cutting hair is an actual coping mechanism that's recognized by mental health professionals far and wide. It's an act that serves as a way to exert control over our life and ourselves. Cutting hair is also a way to redefine self-identity and signal a fresh start. Okay, how often I know I've cut my hair. Ooh, it's the new me. Okay, I think a lot of us can identify with that one. That cutting our hair is a way to sort of like change up the look, but like kind of on a deeper level. Cutting your hair can act as a cathartic release of emotions. That one is, again, I think as I'm talking about a lot of this stuff, I think if you pause and we either reflect on our own times where we've maybe made drastic changes with our hair, or we know somebody who has, this all lines up. This all makes sense. It fits, right? So cutting your hair can act as a cathartic release of emotions. And it's a physical manifestation of emotional struggles. So for sure, like almost all of these fit together for my own life experience. And then for what I've seen from other people, what I've observed from the world around me, it all tracks so far. Some biblical references of haircutting as a grief response or an identity shift. I'm not going to like read the verses to you because without the full context, it would be like a whole Bible study. That's not what we're doing today. So, and I'm going to say the anglicized names of all of these because I think it's the most familiar for most of you out there. So we've got Isaiah 15:2, Jeremiah 7:29, Jeremiah 16:6, Ezekiel 7:18, Micah 1:16, just for those of you who might be new to biblical like references. As an example of that last one, Micah chapter 1, verse 16. So I'm saying like the first number is the chapter and the second number is the verse. Moving on, Deuteronomy 21, verses 12 through 13. There's different things going on, okay? But they're all referencing hair cutting as it being some kind of like grief response tradition, either of the people in the land or, there's again, I don't want to make it a whole Bible study, but so there's a lot of context for all of these, but that's what's being referred to. It's like those people are ripping their hair out as a grief response, or these people are cutting. And for the Jews, it's actually commanded not to shave our heads or beards. I don't shave my beard. I'm a good Jew. But seriously, for men, that's why if you are familiar with religious Jews, especially Jewish men, you may notice that many of them have beards or there are different standards, kind of depends on the community. But overall, they're not shaving their head all the way down. Like they're not using a razor to their head, and they're not shaving their beards completely. There's like, you may like one figure that's coming to mind right now is like Ben Shapiro. Okay. So he has a bare face a lot of the time, but there's like, there are different standards regarding like what part of like the sideburns is like what constitutes the beard and that sort of thing. So in case that was confusing for a minute, there's nuance. Okay. But Jews are actually commanded not to shave their beards or their heads at all. There are specifics in the Bible about not doing it as a grief practice, and it's just a way to like differentiate practices and people groups and things like that. So in Leviticus 21:5 and then Deuteronomy 14:1-2 is where those references are, in case you want to go vet all of those things, all the things I'm telling you. Moving on. The Jewish view of women's hair holding energy is really interesting. That earlier we were talking about from the mental health professional viewpoint, there was one of the bullet points was that cutting your hair can be a physical manifestation of emotional struggles and a cathartic release of emotions. So the Jewish view of women's hair is that women's hair, well, hair in general, but especially women's hair, holds energy. And this is actually a tradition, a viewpoint that may be familiar amongst like Native American groups and the Sikhs, and there's another big one I'm missing. This is an idea, a concept that you see reflected in many cultural groups, many religious groups, and like spiritual traditions and stuff like that. It's very fascinating. Since I'm Jewish, I'm going to speak from the Jewish viewpoint, but it is that women's hair holds energy. It's like extra special because in Judaism, the view is that women are like extra spiritually connected to like Hashem and to God and like spiritual energy and stuff like that. So it's like we're almost like super powered automatically. And so our hair is like super powered in like holding energy and like spiritual energy and things like that. I'm going to read you this quote because it was just a really great summary for this. So in Kabbalah, women's hair is seen as a concentrated vessel of spiritual energy and feminine power, a physical spiritual channel connected to the Shekhinah, which is the divine presence, presence of God, and the receiving side of the soul. So this is actually one of the big reasons why Jewish women, when they're married, they cover their hair. Little like sidebar from our current topic, but it's because under the chuppah where we get married, it's like this supercharged like spiritual moment of like, you know, it's just like very, very spiritual. And so we sort of, after we're married, to protect that spiritual energy and to keep it private and to like not let it go wasted to, you know, like just like fizzling out like vapor to the wind, we cover our hair because this is like the source of our power, you know. And it's not for everyone. It's for the people that we, you know, that we live our private lives with. Anyway, that was like one of my favorite explanations. Honestly, well, my hair covering journey is like a whole other story. So actually, I won't continue about that. But anyway, it's just like another religious traditional viewpoint to support this idea that like women's hair holds energy and holds emotions and holds like a special place in our inner outer world. Okay, so when did mom hair, the short hairstyle, when did that actually start showing up? And does it correlate with the over-medicalization of birth? This is like the whole thing, right? Because if I'm proposing the idea that mom hair is a result of like birth trauma, then it must correlate with the over-medicalization of birth. It must correlate with this grand historical, you know, in the U.S. pattern of medicalization, the medicalization of birth in general. So this is honestly where I thought my whole argument was going to like fall apart. And I was just going to take you on this journey just to like pose the idea and get us all thinking about it. And then we could, you know, and that really is the whole point, is to like present the evidence And until somebody rich can like create this massive research project, this massive study, this like meta study, survey, I don't know what they would call it necessarily, to like, talk to thousands and thousands of women, then we won't ever really know. But it's a really interesting idea. Okay. So here we are. We're looking at the mom short hairstyle, where the short hairstyle stuff, where that came into the mom life, right? And again, does it correlate with the medicalization of birth in the history of the US? So, 1920s, everybody's probably familiar with the bob of, flapper era, 1920s, okay, prohibition, that whole era, right? Okay, so we got 1920s bob, but it originated in Europe and it became a symbol of modernity. So it could very easily be just a trend, but coincidentally, birth moving into hospitals and maternity wings and maternity services in the hospital being a thing actually also originated in Europe and came to the US around the 1910s, between the 1910s and 1930s. Birth started moving into the hospitals around that time. So, what I always knew is that the bob, the like flapper, that whole look was more like a young woman's kind of like a feminist, movement type, like stick it to the man, from those origins. And I don't know that it was necessarily really prevalent in like home life, like traditional home life with like the mothers donning that look also. So it's really unsteady. Okay, this is very, very weak so far, right? Okay, 1940s, we were introduced to more victory styles in hairstyles, okay, and like more practical wartime look, thinking like the shorter, the curls, the updos, the things you can get out of your hair and all of that. That was, Rosie the Riveter and, all of that kind of stuff. Shorter styles, there were, shoulder length and, really pretty. I love the 1940s, the hairstyles. There were other things going on in the 40s that were not great. But anyway, hairstyles, it was practical. It was up and out of the way. But they did also accomplish those looks from longer locks. So, again, still a weak argument, right? At that point in history, in U.S. history, in by the 1940s, we had 56% of births that had been moved to the hospital. Like 56% of births were happening in the hospital. 1950s, softer bobs have appeared at this point. We've got the Laura Petrie's. It's been a long time since I used to watch the Dick Van Dyke Show all the time. So anyway, that character, okay, of the Dick Van Dyke Show, we had her shorter, like a little bit more voluminous bob, and we've got like the Lucille balls, like I Love Lucy, those short like kind of perms and stuff. So we had a lot of like the shorter hairstyles happening in the 1950s. Between 1950 and 1970, more than 99% of births in the U.S. took place in the hospitals. Okay, it's fair to say, I would think, that birth had completely moved over into the hospital, okay? It wasn't until the 1990s that, like, the TV moms were being depicted, like, almost across the board with, like, short, low-maintenance hair. And then from the 2000s onward, the mom shortcut hair style has like been a thing. It's been established as a thing. We talk about it all the time in modern life, right? The mom hair. My husband joked and was like, "Don't you dare ever get a mom haircut." And we're talking about the like Karen look. Yeah, again, that like really short style that I think comes to mind when we say mom hair. So, and then we have the stats that we have of today with like birth trauma, being mistreated in the hospital system and maternity care and that kind of stuff. We have those stats. So, correlation doesn't mean causation, but it is interesting. So, honestly, my conclusion for all of this is that I think it's possible that chopping it all off and like cutting our hair, wanting a whole new look after having kids, kind of does imply shedding of like a traumatic or stressful experience because, or at least like attempting to start new, because so many women again, 1 in 5, and that's just 1 in 5 women reported being mistreated. Okay. How many women were mistreated that didn't actually report? Okay. That's just an official report that somebody made. 1 in 5. You know how agreeable we can be, how very apologetic for our own experiences we can be. Someone can punch us in the face and we'll say sorry, like just in general, right? So think about like what it would take for a woman to actually get the cojones to actually report. It would take a lot, I think. So I'm willing to say, I bet there's way, way, way more women out there who were mistreated that didn't make an actual like report, which should change, guys. Just so you're listening, just in case, like if you were mistreated, go make that report. It doesn't necessarily mean that anything's going to happen or it's going to be some kind of like litigation or whatever going on, but it counts towards their record keeping. And I don't know what percentage they're going to need before they actually do something about all of this. But, if it just keeps climbing, at some point, somebody is going to have to say, this is a big problem and I think we should probably do something about this. I think that's sort of happening now, but it's not enough. There isn't enough gumption for making a difference. So please report things. If you were mistreated, please don't keep it quiet to yourself. It happens to so many women. It's unacceptable, but it happens to so many women. Like, you're not going to be the one that's complaining or whatever, being dramatic or whatever. Like, find the people that are going to actually hear what you're saying, because they're out there. A lot of women were mistreated. And it doesn't need to be a something that we normalize. It is normalized. We can unnormalize it. We can abnormalize it. Please. Anyway, totally like went off on a little rant there, but I think that this is still, it's such a loose, weak argument with the evidence that I had to work with, right? There are so many things that come into trends, into hair trends. There's so many things that come into, like, as a mom myself, with animals that I'm taking care of, in case you can hear my freaking rooster right now. With animals and stuff like that, the practicality of having my hair out of the way really calls to me. But what I do with my hair being longer, because I don't have it covered like this at all times, I do this for the public and for, like, if I'm out where other people are seeing me. But just at home, inside my home and home life, I just pull my hair back, and that's sufficient for me. So I think there's something more to this idea of actually cutting your hair short. And I really wonder, like, again, if you've given birth and you had a really difficult time, like whatever it was just emotionally tumultuous. Okay. Did you cut your hair off? Did you cut it really short? Did you make a big change? Were you tempted to do that? Did you seriously consider it at some point? I'm just curious. And if so, like, please let me know in the comments, because I really want to hear your stories. I want to hear your thoughts and your experiences about this, because this is in no way like conclusive, right? There's no way that I have like figured it all out. It's done now. We've solved the mystery. No, like, this is, I mostly just brought the mystery to all of you guys so that you could nerd out with me and like trying to figure out if this makes sense, at least just anecdotally. I won't carry on and on. That really is that's the episode. I'm so glad that I finally got it out there and posed this question to you. So I want to know, what do you think about all of this? Have you ever made a major hairstyle change? Even if you haven't given birth, like, as a woman, was there a big change that you made with your hair? And if you think about it, it came after a really difficult experience or really stressful experience or traumatic experience, God forbid, or something like that. Like think about it and let me know in the comments. Like, let's talk about this. Let's see what other people are saying and see if this is a shared experience amongst us all. So that's it for this episode. If you're new here and preparing for sovereign birth, start with the Secret series. It's private and designed to orient you properly details in the show notes. Otherwise, feel free to share your input, like I said, in the comments, and try to keep things civilized. Remember, we can only do our best with the tools we have at the time. If you've gotten value out of this video, give us a like, subscribe, consider donating through my website. If you're just listening, give the channel a few stars. And otherwise, check us out at earthboundparenting.org. And with that, bye-bye for now. Intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing in this video is medical or legal advice. By engaging with this content, you agree to take full responsibility for your own experiences and decisions as a result. Everything on this channel is property of Prudence Ministries, a private healing association, unless otherwise stated. Blessed is Adonai, divine sovereign, who brought us to this place and this time for this purpose.